This episode of Radcast Outdoors is brought to you by PK Lures, Bow Spider, and High Mountain Seasonings.
Fish on! Hey, Radcast is on.
Hunting, fishing, and everything in between. This is Radcast Outdoors. Here are David Merrill and Patrick Edwards.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Radcast Outdoors, everybody.
I'm David Merrill.
And I'm Patrick Edwards. It's good to be back here at the Bow Hunters of Wyoming convention once again, and for the third annual Rick Parish episode. This
is going to be like a steamroller, right?
Well, it's great to be back, guys. It's too bad it's once a year that we get together because we always have a good time. But hey, it means we're upright. Things are going good.
And you're still out hunting. I saw on the wall or out on the trophy display out there, you've still got a lot of animals this past year, so you had a good year.
I did have a good year. We're heading on to go skiing in Jackson for the next couple of days, so I didn't bring my elk or my bear skull over, but I did have a good year. So first time in, I think I looked back at like 24 years that I didn't kill a mule deer. So, but hey, I got a couple nice whitetail bucks, so I can't complain about that.
No, you can't complain about that. And we were talking about it. You hadn't done a bear in Wyoming yet.
No,
this is the first.
Yes, it was. It was, we ran into each other in the woods, and I guess I won out. But yeah, it was cool. Now I'll tell the bear story so that in a minute. But yeah, no, it was a fun year. I'd been hunting mostly the last multiple years down in the southern part of the state, and so I drew a good tag up here in the Bighorns with my son, and I was hoping I was up to the task because there was a lot of deep canyon hunting. I went up 3 days before the season. I killed my elk on the 23rd, so I weathered the storm and made it through, but it was fun to just be up there and came down a couple times to just take a shower, and that was it. So when you start 7 or 8 days in, you always I better go shower.
Yeah, it's good to freshen up after you've been working hard in the mountains. I'm sure of that.
Yep. So yeah, like I said, it's great to be back with you guys, and I appreciate you having me on. It's always fun to just sit and shoot the breeze, and so I'm looking forward to telling a couple stories, though.
Yeah, so this year, I do want to hear about the bear hunt. So what are all the tags that you went after and filled this year? So you got your elk.
Well, I got an elk, I got a bear, I got a turkey, I got my second choice antelope, and got a fairly decent antelope for the area I hunted in. I'd never hunted in it before, and went out. I located 12 different water holes via Google Earth and Onyx. Went out looking on a day that was only 105 degrees, and what was funny is I went to the farthest edge of my unit and started working backwards. I only found one water hole that had any sign at it, and others, some of them I couldn't get to, some were too large, some were dried up. And it was funny, the closest one to me to drive to was about an hour away. It was a mile and a half hike out to it, and it was just perfect, and it was just loaded with antelope tracks, and I saw a bunch of antelope. So went out there as a typical hunting situation. I found it, at about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Hiked back to the truck a mile and a half, grabbed my blind, grabbed all my stuff, realized I didn't bring my post pounder, and if you don't put in T-posts with an antelope blind in Wyoming, it's going to be in South Dakota. When I lived down by Cheyenne, it would have been in Nebraska.
Yeah.
So what was funny, I staked it down best I could, got it all set up, had all my stuff in there. So the next day, my wife and me were going up to Meadowlark Lake with her mom. Her mom is 88, so we just set her alongside the shore in a book, and she's always happy. And we go out in our kayaks out there. And so I said, hey, I got to stop by and go put some T-posts up out there. My wife, it was another 105-degree day, as we had a bunch of them this year over there. And she got about 250 yards out and said, I think I'll just sit in the running truck with my mom. And so I made quite a few trips out to that antelope blind. So, but it was fun. Had a lot of antelope come in, got some really nice pictures. I should have put a couple in, some reflection pictures. The water was just perfect with antelope standing in the water.
Oh, cool.
And called one Kissing Cousins because it looked like you can't really tell which is the real antelope or what is the reflection. So it's pretty cool because of the sky was the same color. So
well, that's awesome. Well, tell us about this bear, because you said you hadn't harvested a bear in Wyoming.
Nope.
Not until this year.
Nope. In all my years, I had not. I'd shot a couple in Canada and a couple in Alaska, but I had never shot a Wyoming bear. Usually when I go out in the spring, it's just to walk around, look for bears. It's taking my bow for a walk, as some people will say, or whatever. But
bow hiking.
Yeah, it's actual bow hunting. But so, in fact, I'm getting cabin fever. I've been going through my pack. I bought a new pack last year up at that MAF shoot up in at Antelope Butte, initial ascent out of Idaho, and because I knew I needed a pack that if I killed something, I needed to pack it out. And at Antelope was the first thing I took the whole antelope out in it, but they make good packs. Really enjoyed that pack, and so anyway, sorry if it's a plug for somebody, but
that's fine.
No, there's a bunch of USA made packs. There's one of them there, and they're all going to fit somebody a little different. They all have a little bit different features, and you can't go wrong getting one that's made here in the States.
Yeah. I agree with you. So anyway, so like I said, I've been repacking my pack, getting ready to go on my bear walking adventures as soon as the snow in the Sheridan area melts, because it is bad up there. And we're supposed to be, I think we're getting a bunch right now as we're speaking. So
I know Patrick's got some cabin fever. I got some cabin fever. This year I want to do anything outdoors. So you got the new pack at Mountain Archery Fest.
Yes, and they're going to be back again this year.
We're going to be there with Bow Spider.
Fantastic. Yeah, it was fun. We'll have to go out and shoot, because, I mean, shooting that, and I think they're going to have it back, the Pope and Young World Record course. To just see those, because they're realistic antler sizes and stuff on them, and you get to shoot at the distances that the people shot their animal.
That's a cool course.
So they have a placard there telling the size of the animal, how far they shot it, when they shot it, blah, blah, blah. And so that's how they set it up. So, some of them are, 15 yards. And, I was two longest shots were 50 yards, and I think one was one was a bison, and I can't remember what the other one was, but most of the shots were like in that 30-35 yard range, which was really nice. So
realistically, in the field, I've got a single slider sight, and I like to practice at distance, triple digits, right?
Well, your bow's in tune if you can shoot long distance.
Certainly, but on a real animal with real brush in a live dynamic situation where I'm breathing heavily, maybe got some adrenaline going, I really like 20, 30 yards. That's that slam dunk range. We start getting into 40, 50. Now limbs, sticks, twigs, animals can move. You start getting into 60, 90. I know guys out there can do it. I'm not a proponent of it. Let's reel the distance in, guys, a little bit. And the difference is, at 90, it's a maybe. At 60, it's a probably. At 30, it's pretty much a done deal.
Yep. Yeah, and that sort of come up during a discussion today, that the panel discussion that we had earlier here about, that limitation, and just because some other guy can do it, like, Levi Morgan, you see that he shoots a lot of stuff at long distance. Well, he was a world-class archer, and let's face it, guys, only a small percentage of people in the world are like world-class or get to go to the NFL or get to play in the NBA, and it's even those guys, though. It is, I question their shooting that long, because it's not a target. It's a living, breathing animal, and I'd like to shoot everything, because I'm pretty good at 15 yards. And I'd like to shoot everything at 15 yards.
Mm-hmm. Get up close, man. Get up close.
Bow hunting is about getting rifle close and then figuring out how to get 75% closer, right?
Yeah, yep.
And the real world happens when you go from 250 yards on elk to 25.
Yeah. So
that's the excitement of it. We're not here to. If it was just harvesting, well, and this is a question I want to broach: is at what point in time does technology take over? At what point in time do I have a euthanizing dart attached to a drone with infrared scope, and I sit on my computer at home and drive it up behind the animal, dart it, and walk up there and harvest it and hang my tag? There is a line somewhere. I don't know exactly where it is, but 147 yards on a mule deer with a bow is beyond that line. And there's guys, well, I can shoot that on paper. Yeah, and they tried it in the field, and that mule deer's not harvested. So let's reel the distance in, guys. That's what bow hunting's about.
I can't remember the name of every once in a while, when it's I can't get outside to do anything. I was looking at YouTube, and I can't remember the gentleman's name that teaches these classes, and really on release techniques and stuff. And so before his class, he has everyone write down what their effective range is, and then he lines it up out there on a steel target. And then this whole class, they don't know what the other, so he'll call your name and you step up there, and he said, okay, let's go to 50 yards. And it's just in the video, I mean, it's just hilarious. Boing, boing, absolutely. And so yeah, I think,
Steel gets in your head, Rick. I will tell you that. I tried a 38-yard shot, and I can pretty well smoke stuff at 38 yards, and I had to take 3 shots at a total archery challenge to get an arrow through the steel. I am going to throw a kudos out to Gold Tip, because they're a Kinetic Chaos arrow. I stuck it in the steel, went and pulled my arrow, checked it, put a new field point in, and shot it again. And there's very few arrows on the planet besides that Kinetic Chaos that'll do that.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So anyway, yeah, I don't know if we want to go down that road of, I think that everyone knows. I mean, I passed up 15-yard shots back when I shot a recurve because I just wasn't there. And I passed up other shots too that, God, that just seems far today. And then I'll range in like, oh, no, what were you doing? It's one of those situations that, you have to be your own self-policeman.
Yeah, you need to, and the easiest way for me to, I guess I posit this, is take a paper plate or take a 4-inch circle, either way. Start shooting at it and back up. When you pull one arrow out of the 4-inch circle or one broadhead off the 8-inch paper plate, half the paper plate distance or keep the 4-inch circle distance. Either one. But if you set that limit in your backyard with your equipment and you stick to that in the field, and for me, the paper plate's about 55 and the 4-inch circle's about 45. So if I'm a 50-yard shooter, right, somewhere in there, and on a good day, paper plate's 80, 90, no joke, but 4-inch circles, 40 yards, right? So if I don't go beyond that in the field, every time I pull the triggers, it's going where it's supposed to.
Yeah, dawn, dusk, wind, elevation, up, down, there's so many parameters. So, well, here's what someone told me once. If you don't take the shot, that animal's there tomorrow for you to go after again. Makes a lot of sense. I think I'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. So we preface this a little bit, and I don't want to turn this into YouTube and David and Bow Spider, but we did talk a little bit about my trip up north, and I didn't get a bow kill, right? And there on film, I'm at 78 yards from a billy bedded, and I saw an opportunity to get about 45 yards. So we ducked back down the ridge and start moving up. Well, there's a nanny and a kid that was bedded on film just behind him and above him, and they did not like that. So when we repositioned, it was about a 50-yard further stalk back down the hill, forward, and then come back up in the saddle. And we're going to be right in this Billy's. It was going to be a 40-yard shot instead of 78, and the wind was ripping. That was if there'd been no wind, I may have just decided to take a poke at him from right there, right? I made the call. In hindsight, was it the right call? I don't know. He's still there to take a shot at tomorrow. But we pull up over that saddle, and they've all grouped up at about 35 yards. There's 15, and I didn't hurt you. So I didn't get to take one with the bow, right?
Right.
But it's that I had the fun. I got on film, I'm there like, hey, I could take this shot right now, but I think I can get closer, and I'm going to try. So let's hear about this bear.
Well, I have to preface the bear on... I was actually elk hunting and elk scouting beforehand. So being retired, I was up in the mountains quite a bit before the season.
Don't rub it in too much now.
I'm not, this is generic. I can't even remember their names. So anyway, but I've been up scouting, and I've been running into these guys in a pickup truck, and it was 3 guys that had drawn that area from Wisconsin, and they were out this was like 3 days before the season, and that was their first day there. And then I ran into them on the second day in the morning.
Kudos for them showing up before season and trying to do a little homework instead of just showing up and driving around and scout while season's going on.
But they asked if I'd been seeing anything. I said, well, I've been up here on and off for a month and stuff. Well, on one side, kudos to them, and on the other side, no to them. They started actually scouting me then, and I caught them a couple times. I was out on some points, and I'd see that they were looking at me through binoculars or a spotting scope. And the day before the season, here I had 5 or 6 spots I was going out and scouting from, and here they were at 2 of them.
You had 3 guys at your spots.
Yeah, and one of them was where I wanted to go opening day. That I had a water hole that had a seep running down to it, and there was a wallow there, and then there was a wallow, but it was out in a pretty open area, so it was like 80 yards roughly from the tree line. But there was 2 trees that stuck out a little bit, and I could get underneath the boughs of those and be 65 yards away, and that was too far for a shot. But they'd been feeding in my several observations, they'd just been feeding all over the area. I'll put it that way. That's easier to say. So to get to the bear story, opening morning, I go hiking down there and I crawl in under my boughs and hoping to have some action coming up. It's about an hour before first light, and I'm laying there trying to catch a little, and I'm like, wow, I can't remember the term for it when you hear things in your ear.
Tinnitus?
Tinnitus. Yeah, thank you, Patrick. And I'm like, did I just hear a radio? So I'm sitting there a little bit more, and it's really quiet. And how can I hear a radio? And am I going crazy? What's going on here? And then all of a sudden, it changed a little bit, and I realized, oh, that's human voices, which would have been on a radio, but I thought I was down here because it's about 1.5 miles off the road. So I go around the corner, and sure enough, 2 of the guys from Wisconsin are right there. And so they had obviously beat me down there. They would have walked by me. So I said, you guys are down here. I said, I'll just go off. I tried to play it low key so they didn't know what I've been seeing, but there have been 12 bulls hanging out in that area. And so I took off and went a different direction. Well, when I came out that afternoon, I saw where they had parked to come in, which sort of was crazy because they would go right through the area where elk would possibly be feeding out in the sagebrush. So anyway, went back, had lunch, come out, and I went to check to see if their truck was still there. It wasn't. So I parked back where I did, way down, and where I come down through the woods all the way, or on the edge of the woods, and I get in my spot, and I've been there for some time, and the woods behind me arched back about 30 yards, so it was sort of a tree line that made a big bow back, and then these 2 trees were out here. And there were some elk trails that came out there and some rubs and stuff, so I had ranged them, and I'd been sitting there for about an hour, and all of a sudden I hear something. I look up and hear one of the guys is coming down, and he walks up to me and he says, just wanted you to know I built a little blind over here, just to the side of you over here, and I'm going to be hunting here all season. And I was like, well, okay. Sort of, I can't say what kind of an attitude I had at that time, but I was a little miffed.
Mm-hmm. He's essentially trying to kick you off public land, and you're sitting there. It's like, my blind's right there. It's a little posturing and territorial display.
And in a minute I'll tell you about his blind. But I had just got the duff out. I didn't do anything for a blind. I mean, it sort of gave me a nice little spot where I was at. Later in that evening, I did have a 5-point bull come out, and he come down to the wallow, and he's splashing around. I got it on film on my phone and stuff, and so that was pretty cool. He finally left, and he went to the west from me. Woods are behind me to the east, and about 6:45 or so, I heard something behind me, and I turned and looked, and here already a bear's walking out behind me. And it probably been out of the woods for about 30 yards, and it's walking from my right to my left from behind me, and my bow's laying on the ground. By the time I reached down slowly and pulled it up, he'd made it another, probably 10, 15 yards. And I started drawing. He caught that and spun back and ran back and stopped right in front of a tree that earlier I had ranged at 30 yards. So I shot, and I thought my shot was uphill behind me. I thought my shot was a little high, and it tore into the tree and made a ruckus. It was really, really thick back there. And I heard it go for about 80 yards, and then nothing, and I'm listening for a death moan. Well, I wait a half hour, and I go up there, and it's getting pretty dark now, and I'm looking. I mean, you can shoot out into the open,
but you can't shoot into the timber.
In the trees, yeah. And I didn't hear a death moan. I can't find any blood. I can't find my arrow. And I'm just like, I'm not going in there.
Good call.
Well, on a bear, their fur soaks up blood, and there's not a good blood trail a lot of times on bears and stuff. And so I thought I'd go down and tell this guy because, I mean, it ran right behind him. So I go down there, and he does have a really nice blind. He'd cut some boughs and made a little fort, you know, like a kid's fort in there, and he had a little chair in there and everything. And I was like, I come walking up, and the first thing he looked up and he did you shoot an elk out from underneath me? I had a neutral attitude. It sort of went on the other wrong side of neutral, I guess. After
that comment.
And I just said, no, but I just wounded a bear, and he's in the forest behind you here, and I just thought you should know, and I turned and walked off. I never did see him in there again.
He's probably like, oh, shoot.
I'm sorry if you're the kid that built the blind and listened to this, but this is funny. This is great.
So that was my bear story, and I came back the next morning, and it was right there about that where it ran into about 80 yards and went silent. So I looked around for him and never saw him there again. I saw him out on the road, but I didn't see him down in that area again. So
he didn't want to mess with your black bear.
He did say, I guess one thing he did say, he goes, "Oh, you can shoot those?" And I was like, "Yeah." So anyway, but yeah, I was probably, that wasn't the nicer side of me, but I just thought, you know, I warned him. There you go. I warned him.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, and the thing is, it's public land. It's going to happen, and
we have had this conversation about ethics, and you know, everybody needs to play some ethics in here, right? Whether it's legal or not. Take fishing, for example. If I'm down there in the fishing hole, walking right next to me and standing a rod's length away and casting right over my line. If I look up and down the bank and there's nobody up, go 500 yards up and fish another hole, right?
And then when I move out, come on in, you know. Yeah.
And there is that etiquette, and if you're new to the sport, grab a mentor. Maybe do what you do unto others, right? The golden rule. How do you want to be treated?
You know, I float. My wife and I love to fish, and we float the bighorn a lot. And there's a couple of really nice holes. And if someone pulls, you know, downstream quite a ways away from us and stuff, instead of hogging right in, we'll limit our time, because we're like, okay, we caught a couple out of here. Let's move on. Let them in here, you know.
And if everybody keeps that flow going, you've got 20 boats on the river, and everybody's just pausing for a few casts in each hole.
Yeah.
You don't get that pile up.
Yeah, and so I'm a lot more amenable to you know, someone that shows me respect, to getting them in there, and you know, and a lot of times I'll talk to them and say, yeah, this, you know, I'll tell them what I'm catching, man.
I'm going to be hunting here all season, just so you know.
Yeah, I'm going to fish here the rest of my life.
Well,
just so you know.
I mean, with some of the stuff that Patrick catches, I can see I'm fishing here all year, and I'm going to leave my kids here to save my spot while I go home and eat.
You know, Patrick,
sorry, I had to throw that out there.
Well, there is some posturing in the fishing holes, especially on Kenai. You know, Patrick and I were up there last summer, and we had a little bit of. I looked at everybody. I'm like, I've got my son King Butters there, right? And we had fun, but here we were with a 9-year-old trying to get him on a fish. You know what?
Yeah.
And there's a couple old crotchety guys that are there every day. They're getting their limit, and this is my spot and my rock. And I'm like, guys, for an hour, just get out of the way. Let this kid catch a fish, because and we need to. You know, we all get the blinders on, and I want to kill a huge elk, and I want to harvest a big walleye, and we want to do that stuff. But we do need to share the resource, and you know, you don't know, maybe that person you're having encounter with, it's their first elk hunt, it's their first fishing trip, and if you make that negative, they're not coming back. And then when a bill comes before the legislature that is anti or fishing or hunting or public land use, they're like, man, I was out there and got harassed, and I don't think anybody should be utilizing that resource. So we are our own worst enemy in that regards.
Yeah, it can be contentious. The best thing to do is try to not make it so contentious, just like Rick was talking about. I mean, there's just no point in it, right? Like, it doesn't do anybody any good. So
there's another ridge, there's another stream.
Yep.
Time to reel up and go somewhere else.
Yeah. And a lot of times you can still be in the same vicinity, and it's not that big of a deal, right? Like, that's one of the things.
Especially
I always
these
tell
limited
people.
entry tags, you know.
Yep. So I want to hear about your turkey too, because that was quite the story of the turkey that could. No,
Turkey that could.
Well, in the Sheridan area, we have a ton of whitetails, especially on private property and stuff. And I'm fortunate enough to have a couple private properties that I can go and hunt on. And so they need some whitetail does killed. So, and I have a lot of friends that like whitetail doe meat. I've been doing this for years where I mean, probably for 20 years that I shoot additional does for deer management and give to friends. I was on this one. I made a good shot on a doe. I'd built a hay bale blind, guys, this in my garage last year, and it lived and it pretty nice. On my birthday, my wife surprised me. Her and her girlfriend were being. I'm a big Stevie Nicks fan. I went to saw Fleetwood Mac when I was 18 years old and haven't been ever since. So they put in there on my birthday in July. They went out and they decorated my hay bale blind, put Stevie Nicks posters all over, and it had chairs with candles in there and said "Oh Stevie" on it and stuff. So yeah, my wife likes to give me a bad time. So I left the posters in there, but I was hunting out of my hay bale blind.
Out of your Stevie Nicks blind?
Yeah, my Stevie Nicks blind. I shot a whitetail doe, and she ran about 35 yards and expired. And so I hiked back up to my truck, and I could drive it down to about 160 yards away from my blind. I had taken and dragged the doe over underneath of a tree in the shade because I wanted to get a picture, and I wanted her in the shade before, and so as I got out of the truck, the side draw coming down into the stream that I was hunting, where I killed this doe, here comes 9 gobblers, and I mean nice big gobblers, and I had a turkey tag, and so I grabbed my bow and one arrow because I have a pack. I don't like a quiver on my bow because when I hunted down in southeast corner, it was always windy, and to have your bow up and the wind hitting it, so I keep my bow as lean as I can. And anyway, so I grabbed one arrow and my bow, and I ran down to where I could intercept them. I'm hiding behind this little plum bush, and here they come out, and I thought it was about 20 yards. Of course, I didn't have my rangefinder either because I'd taken my binoculars off. They wouldn't stop, and so I started making some weird noises at them. The fourth one finally stopped in line, and I pulled up, shot. Well, he must have been closer to 25 because I was a little low, but I went through the breast. I was trying to hit the butt of the wing, but it broke his off side leg. And all the other ones took off flying while he took off running. He looked like he was pretty slow. Well, I must be a lot slower because I couldn't catch the darn thing. Censorship.
Here you're with no arrow. You got a stick and a string.
Yeah.
I could just see you jumping out of the blind and chasing this turkey down.
Yeah, well, I was standing out in the open behind a bush at the time. But so now I've run probably another 100 yards. So now it's 250 yards back to the truck. So I run back there, get an arrow because I'm not going to catch him. And I was like, I didn't have a knife either. I mean, I don't think, can you wring a turkey's neck? Good question.
This is a good question.
That's a great question. I have no idea.
If you grabbed him by the neck, I was like, that thing could spur you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
they're not small. It's not like a pheasant.
They're not small.
Well,
and
before you preface that, pheasant hunting on Ocean Lake had a buddy who has pheasant holders that go on his belt. Shot a pheasant, dog brought it back, he clips it on his belt. About 5 minutes later, it starts spurring him on the leg, and it left marks. It was so that's like a pound bird. So now we're talking a 10-pound bird. I don't know that
I bet you he was a 15-pound bird.
I don't know that I'd want to tangle with one.
So if there could have been a film of me right then, the look on my face is, I don't know what to do with this. I mean, really, because okay. I mean, my decision was finally to go get another arrow and try to shoot him, but I was like, I don't think I can wring his neck, and plus he's pretty big and seemed in pretty good shape yet. I just didn't know, so I ran back, got another arrow. I should have grabbed 2, but I was excited, so I run back because this is my first Wyoming turkey. I'd shot 2 in North Dakota back. You could shoot them with guns, when I was in college. But I come back down, I can't find him. I knew what direction he went, so I'm walking along. Finally, I spooked him up, and he's still moving pretty good, but he slowed down a little bit. I got up to where I could get about 20 yards from him, and he stopped. I put one right in the back and sort of pinned him to the ground, but again, when I get up there, he wasn't quite dead. And so I went over and sat on a log for a while and let him finish off because I didn't know about wringing a neck on a turkey. So there's my weird turkey story.
We're going to have to get a turkey expert on Radcast just to talk about, can you wring the neck of a turkey?
There you go. Yeah. So yeah, again, no binoculars, so no spotting or rangefinder on, no knife on me because that's in my pack, which is laying in the truck. It has all my arrows, So yeah, totally.
Well,
yeah.
And you had to run, right? So I mean, you're probably huffing pretty good because you had to run back and forth.
Yeah.
I would have liked an aerial drone or a wide-angle fish lens of watching this whole thing take place.
Well, when he's, I chased him for a little bit, thinking, well, I'll just catch him and stop it. But when I realized I'm not going to catch him, then I'm sure I just stood there and had the weirdest look on my face, like, well, what do I do here?
What do you do? That is a good question.
Yeah, so it was fun, and then so it was pretty cool. I got to take a picture. It was my first turkey, so I was excited, with a bow. So I had this doe down and a turkey, and I thought that was a great double, a great double day. So
I had a double day kind of similar to that a few years ago, where I got my pronghorn antelope in the morning, and then I got my limited walleye in the evening. And so I had, kind of the cast and blast kind of deal.
Cast and blast,
You got your poultry and your venison, in one day. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, that would have been a picture that I would not have anticipated with an antelope there and then holding up a limit of walleyes over the top.
Yeah, I did take a picture, and I still have it, of, some... I can't remember if it was the tenderloins or whatever that I had thrown into a vacuum seal bag, and then I had a vacuum seal bag of fillets from the walleyes. I was like, this is a really good day. This is the way to do it.
That is. I mean, that's why we live in Wyoming.
Heck yeah, man.
We can do that kind of stuff. Amen to that. So, yep, amen to that. So, yeah.
Well, you had opportunity to sit down for the meeting this morning with Bowhunters of Wyoming, and I know you've had a long history with them. Is there anything pertinent going on with the club?
I got elected to Area 3 rep again. I was a couple of years ago, and then we had a young man, Tony Osweiler. Sorry if I boogered your name there, Tony. He lived in Gillette, and so we had a lot of BOW representation in Sheridan. So I said, but Tony moved down to Cheyenne, so he wasn't able to stay as the area rep, and so we had a couple people run, me and another person, and it was real close. And but there was somebody that didn't like me and voted. A couple people voted more for me, and I'm back in the position.
There you go.
Didn't like you and voted more for you.
Yeah, voted me in.
Well, I think it's good to have some new blood and some old guard in the organization, and keep some consistency, but definitely get some fresh ideas. And we need to be recruiting the next generation for sure.
So when you talk about old guard, in 1985 was the last time we had BOW convention in Riverton, and that was Fred Asbell was our guest speaker then, and Fred has just passed recently and stuff. But so it's great to be back in Riverton since 1985.
Wow.
It's been a long time, and I think I joined in '84, so I've been a member for a long time.
And there's some really good attendance here in Riverton, which is wonderful to see. A lot of participation from vendors. Everybody can hear the background noise. I mean, this place is packed out.
It's great. Lots of great auction items going on. Great vendors. It's good to see. I think we're in about the 270 range for
That's great.
And this is not
the
just
banquet
for Wyoming residents. We got people from other states coming, and if you're hearing this and you want to come next year, it's a great organization.
Yeah. Join up.
Join up. Come.
Join
we
up.
support a lot of great, whether it's wildlife conservation, whether it's youth hunting. I mean, and just tonight we're going to have some great auction items and have a good meal and have a good time.
Yes, it's always a fun time.
I was listening to some of the projects and some of the things that you guys put money towards, and I think that's really great. I mean, it's all of its positives for the state and for bow hunting.
Yeah, I mean, one of our things when we first approached the commissioners to see if we could get a commissioner's elk tag to raffle was we had heard from various people in the field that they needed money for small projects. And we have stuck to that value from the beginning, that all the money, I mean, every single penny goes back. And sometimes we actually put general fund money out of our budget, our savings account, into projects too, if we deem it, worthwhile, because we get such good projects and stuff. Again, today it was voted on we had raised $30,000 through the raffle and put it all back into projects. And just
And to highlight that project, what that is the commissioners in the state get elk tags, right? And it's not hundreds, it's limited elk tags, and they're good for the whole state for the season. And they get to turn around and auction those off to typically somebody who wants to come from out of state. I mean, it could be somebody in state as well, but somebody bought one tag for $30,000, and all that money came to BOW, right?
Nope, a little bit different.
Okay.
So we had it was a raffle, so you could buy, we had 600 tickets at $50 a ticket. And so whoever won that, so in-state, out-of-state.
Perfect.
Now, we a couple of years ago, we had one person right off the bat when it was announced called and said, have you sold any of the raffle tickets? And it was the first morning, and they bought them all, $25,000 worth.
Wow.
So we limited it because we wanted it to be fair for everybody. And so we limited it to you can buy 10 a day. So that's good. But what I found out when I got here is that another commissioner graciously given us another tag, and we will be doing a raffle on that one. And that was part of the business thing, and that's probably what you picked up on, David, is that there will be a raffle or an auction. I'm getting my terms mixed up. We are going to do a auction with that other tag. I don't know all the particulars on that. So
no, I think it's a great way because that tag, if it was just to go through the state, is $1,000 elk tag non-resident and a $50 resident tag. So there's some really good funds behind.
Yes.
And
this year a lot of the funding went to some youth programs and to different studies and projects. We talked about the money from the second one. We want to be more on the ground, sagebrush treatment, fence removal, water guzzlers, things of that nature. So we'll send back out to the BLM, the Forest Service, up in Sheridan County, we have the Sheridan County Community Land Trust, and they do a lot of fence removal projects each year. And so we'll give them a heads up on that. But yeah, it's statewide. So if you know anyone out there, you hear this podcast, and you know any organization that's doing stuff for wildlife, you're eligible. So
cool.
Contact us.
That's great. And it's cool because, I mean, you have you guys. We were just at the Muley Fanatic 10 chapter banquet, a week ago, something like that. And I mean, they also auctioned off a commissioner's tag. They're putting a lot of money into mule deer research, wildlife crossings, that kind of stuff. You guys are doing a lot of that work too, supporting
I think that tag went for 27,000 live while we were there.
Yep. So
that's about what they're bringing. That's what they're worth.
Yep, they are.
So if somebody did want to contact Bowhunters Wyoming, what's the best how to get a hold of someone?
Probably get online and look up our website. Type in your search engine, Bowhunters of Wyoming, and the website will pop up, and there's all sorts of contact information there.
Get a hold of your area rep for wherever your project is, and maybe talk to him, and then they'll pass it up to Flagpole.
Yep.
And then you guys are on the socials too, so I follow everything that's going on Instagram and Facebook, so that's another good way to get in touch with the group too.
Yes, and I'm one of those, as I mentioned earlier, not on air here, but I'm 64, and I try to stay away from that kind of stuff.
You're retired and getting to enjoy hunting all fall.
My wife is on the Bowhunters of Wyoming Instagram, and she's always, did you know you guys are doing this? And I'm like, no.
I feel like I am now.
Yeah. And so, not being the area rep last year, I sort of took some time out, but, I'm going to have to probably get back on Instagram because, like you said, it's a good mixture of old and young. And before it was always phone calls, and now it's social media, and I mean, that was brought up today too when they did the Dent Card and South Cox and Aaron Snyder up there, and a lot of talk about social media, good and bad, and what it's done to and for hunting. I mean, not all of it's good, not all of it's bad. So I think we're wading our way through social media and stuff as time goes on. And, I mean, how long have podcasts been around? I mean, and they're great. I mean, you guys have been having some fantastic people on your podcast, I don't know, I'm jumping on here and I'm like, wow, what's going on? They, did my wife pay you guys or what?
Oh, come on now. You're a
we
great
enjoy
guest.
having you. So what are some hunts you're looking forward to this year?
I'm going to put in for Kansas. My brother helps out a guy down there, like putting up tree stands and stuff, and it's a great area. I've hunted it once. I didn't shoot one. Saw some nice ones. My brother's harvested several down there. I didn't draw last year. So with the preference point, more than likely I'll draw this year. I don't have any big hunts on the horizon. I'm hoping I draw again to hunt with my son. It was so much fun hunting with him, and I did a couple things that he said, you can't get away with that. I have a cow elk decoy, and we got onto a herd of elk, and I just walked right out in the middle of the thing and set it down and crawled backwards, and he goes, because I was going out, and he's, what are you doing? You're going to scare, because it was a nice 6-point bull in there. They didn't even move. I mean, they stand there because they're expecting leg movement behind it, and so I just crawled out 8 yards, put the decoy up, and then I called in that herd, and he missed the bull.
And you know what? It's just like hooking a big fish, a big laker, getting it right to the boat and breaking it off, right? Those stories are the ones that'll stand the lifetime, and that's half the. If you would have got the elk, good for you. You guys went and killed a big 6-point. You get to 5 years, go, hey, remember when I called that whole herd in and that bull's right there, and you didn't get it done? Yeah, that was awesome.
So, I've killed a lot of elk in my lifetime and stuff, and so hunting with my son, and he's taken several 6x5s, but never killed a true 6x6 with a bow, one with his rifle. But so I'm going to tell you a real quick elk story. Do we have time?
We do.
So we hunted together quite a bit, and he missed that one. And what happened is it just kept coming across the clearing, and he's standing out in front of a spruce like he should, but it got so far to his left that his sight
bow
pin and
arm
bow
is
come
in the
into
spruce.
the pine. Yeah. And we got back on the herd again, and I did the same thing, crawled out while some cows are watching me, set up the decoy again, and I could see elk legs coming by, and I'd seen him draw like 3 or 4 times, but it was 4 spikes in a row walked out right in front of him, and he thought for sure, because we'd seen the 6-point bail down into there, and I had the cows out to the left of me. But so this is a couple weeks later now, and we found a stud bull. He was a 7 on one side, and then he had a big old drop club on his left, and he had a brow tine that stuck out probably 24 inches on the left side, and then his main beam came back. There's nothing on it. It was just like a 40-inch spike.
That's awesome.
And I called that thing in to 60 yards on him probably 4 or 5 times, and he's self-imposed about 45, 50 yards. And we messed with this bull for a week. So he's a school teacher, so we'd messed with it. He comes back up. This was like the 22nd or 23rd. It was the 23rd.
Getting towards the end of season.
Yeah, it's the 23rd because that's the day I killed my bull. Duh. I'm not the brightest light bulb here, but anyway. Anyway, so we go out on this point, find the herd. They come out of the sagebrush and into this area that we've been in on them several times already. And so he's heading down there, and I'm going to give him hand signals off this big old rock pile that I'm on. And he gets down there, and I watched him for like 300 yards, and then he's level with the elk, and he should be going in, and I'm looking, can't see him. Finally, about 15 minutes later, I catch him. He's like 500 yards below the elk. It's a big, long ridge. And I see him put his binoculars down, go like this, just as I caught him, and he walks in the woods. Well, he didn't get any signal from me or anything like that, so I'm like, oh, crap. So I'm just setting up there, and it's been about an hour, and all of a sudden a cow comes just shooting out of the woods back to where they had come from. This point goes out like this and drops off both ways. It goes up and here's that bull on her butt. And he runs out about 200 yards out there, and he stops, and you could just see the look in his face like, oh, I got cows back there. So he runs back, picks up those cows, and comes out and follows this cow who went around the corner into this other woods down below me. Well, here they all come running in there, and I'm like, well, I'm going to have to go after him and all of a sudden he goes in the woods, and it just erupts. Here there's another herd of elk in there.
Oh, boy.
And there's another big, probably about a 320 class 6-point, and he comes out, and he's screaming, and he chases another small 6-point out and a 4-point and a couple of cows out into this clearing down below me. And I'm talking a scree field. I'm up on a top of this scree field. There's a little timber at the bottom of the scree and then a big, long north-south running finger of sagebrush. And then they're in the timber on the other side. Well, he comes out a couple times just screaming, and you can hear cows mewing. So the cows got mixed, and it's just a madhouse in there. And I'm like, I got to get down there. So I'm getting down there, and I get to the edge of the timber off the bottom of the scree, and an elk bugles up behind me where I just come from, and then I can hear another one to my left, and I got to go way down. I know I can't cross because I can see elk jittering all over, so I have to go way down about 200 yards to my left to get around this open area and get over to them. So just when I hit the very corner, I run right into another bull, and I saw horns and I saw legs and I saw body, but I don't know even how big he was, and I spooked him. This other one's still bugling up above me, and he sounds like a decent bull, and I think he's just bedded up there because he bugled the whole time, because this is like an hour event here, doing all this, coming down through a scree, trying to be quiet, trying not to be seen, and these elk are just still going crazy down below me. You want to get there as fast as you can, but you don't want to screw things up because it's like. So I finally get around it, and I'm coming in, and I get up into this little thing of timber, and it's a series of shelves. And here in this open area down below me stands that non-typical bull with 9 cows. And I'm like 80 yards from him, and I'm like, oh my, this might work. And then to my right, I saw some elk coming right to me through the trees, and here it's that 4-point, that 6-point had kicked out earlier, and 2 cows, and they run into me, and they turn around and go straight back. They just knew something was up. They didn't see me that well, and it didn't bother him. But about that time, that other 320, 330 class 6-point comes flying down off the upper shelf right behind this non-typical and goes over the next shelf down. Well, that non-typical turned around and followed him over the shelf, and they're just both screaming. So I'm like, okay. So I have to back around again, get down on the lower shelf, and I'm going. And just as I was going in the trees, I look over, and here steps out another bull behind those 9 cows, about 100 yards behind him. And just the hoarsest bugle in the world. And I could tell he was a 6x5. He was missing his 5th point on the right side. Just this guttural bugle, and he's just screaming. He's got a couple cows with him. So he's on this shelf up here, but I drop down a shelf, and I'm going, and I can hear those bulls bugling down below me, and I assume it's the 2 big ones, but they're slightly moving away from me, and I'm trying to catch them. And I get even with this growler up on the hill above me, and there's a big deadfall there, and I said, go down a shelf or go up and crawl through and see if you can, how close that bull is. So I crawled underneath a couple of spruce trees on my hands and knees. It was, and I come up, and there he is, 38 yards away, and he's got his butt to me, and he's got 3 cows there, and he's licking on one. And I know there's cows back behind me to my right, and those others are screaming down here, and a cow turns, and he turns broadside, starts following her, and when his head went behind a bush, I was going to do a cow call to stop him. What came out was more like a bullfrog. I mean, I startled myself. I actually paused because I was like, oh, what the heck is that? Sorry about this, the mice. And so he stopped, and I already knew what distance he was. I pulled back, and things were just so settled and smooth. I mean, it was just like, oh, the pin's right there. You should probably, boom, the arrow was gone, and hit him. And I must have hit the offside shoulder because about 8 inches of arrow was sticking out. But I couldn't have went up and placed it any better. And he bailed off the hill. And so I just sat there for the next 30 minutes and just listened to the one bedded up behind me still bugling, 2 or 3 down below still bugling. And I knew I didn't get the great big one, but,
That's still so cool.
It was just so cool. So
I do have one question.
Yeah.
You talked about taking your boy, and what would be some advice of somebody who's wanting to get into this and get their kids into it? What would be a couple things you'd suggest where to start?
Good question, but I'm going to finish one thing on another thing.
Go ahead.
So I thought he went downhill. Well, he did about 3 steps and then went to the right, so your mind can be deceiving, but he went out and died in a nice sagebrush park, but that was really steep. At 64, it's pretty hard to roll an elk over. I had the first half butchered in about 15 minutes, and took an hour to roll him over to get the rest off. So anyway, there was a comedy of errors, but yeah, and I took half of it out before, and then the next day we took the other half out. So at 64, my new pack worked perfect. It didn't hurt my back at all or anything. So
great.
Anyway, so when my kids were younger, my wife traveled a lot. She worked for the state and was all over the state for nursing things and stuff. And I mean, I took them out really young, and I bugled in a bull once where I put them back behind me. And we were in a great big aspen thicket, and those little junipers grow up, and I had him under there. I had a bull come down, walk over, and was peeking his head over at him. I mean, nose to face was probably 2 feet.
Wow.
And that bull would lift his head up and look around, and then he'd look back at him as 2 little boys. I think they were 4 and 6 at the time. And
They're so scared they don't want to move.
and they're like, no, when they finally ran off, they both stand up. Why didn't you shoot him? Right over the top of him. Yeah. Uh-huh. So I mean, those memories, and that's one of the things that they recall. They recall everything that ever happened to bull bugling in. I mean, take them out. I mean, what age I guess take them out at any age. I mean, I had to. I went hunting with them, and I mean, they were in on a moose kill with me. They were in on several different kills. Antelope hunting in a blind when they were really small, So one of them was turned into be an avid hunter, and then he quit. Now he's down. He fishes every day. So I mean, that's his passion. He never showed any interest in fly fishing growing up whatsoever. And in the last, he's all over the state of Colorado. He lives in Fort Collins. He camps at Miracle Mile in January in the back of his truck. So and now my other son, he had less interest, and then he pretty avid now. But he also loves to hunt with a rifle, which I never showed to either of them. So it's sort of an interesting thing of how they grow up and become their own person and stuff. But I exposed them early to everything, and they really they know now. Because like Lane's a school teacher, and even kids, when he was a teacher in Sheridan, now he's a teacher at Tongue River High School in Dayton. There's kids that are in our communities that have never been up in the mountains.
Never cooked a hot dog over a campfire and watched the stars at night. That's like
So
that's normal life for Patrick and you and me.
You're right. They had outdoor adventure programs in the high schools, and you've probably been up here. No, I've never been on the mountain.
Never slept in a tent?
Yeah. So
we live in a tent.
Yeah, so they go, take them climbing and do all sorts of stuff. So
sponsor a kid. Take a kid outdoors.
Yeah.
Your kid, somebody's kid.
Yeah, and even if it's not hunting, take them just outdoors. Let them appreciate what's out there. So we used to take kids, most of Kyle's friends, Kyle hung out with a bunch of kids that were not outdoor parents. And so we took them up like cross-country skiing and stuff, and I'd dig a hole down to the ground, and we'd put seats in it and cook hot dogs you're in a snow bowl, and things like that. And those kids, when I see them now, I remember when we went up and cooked hot dogs, and you dug down and started a fire. I mean, I look back, and we probably only cross-country skied 300 yards into the woods, and they're like, "Oh, can we have the hot dogs yet?" But now they all, they're all outside. They're all out doing stuff, and they know that there's a value to our outdoors, and I think that's the biggest thing is if we, hunting, fishing, camping, just cooking a marshmallow out over a fire and seeing the stars.
Yep.
Getting them in a tent. It doesn't have to be that you take them hunting. Just show interest in them and that there is stuff other than a phone or video games.
Well said. Because, it is about getting them off the screens and getting them out into the outdoors, unplugging to actually plug in, right, to get out and enjoy nature. So really appreciate that, man. And it's always good to have you on the show. It's a pleasure. I love your stories. Love to get to hang out with you and visit and catch up. Again, we need to do it more than once a year, though.
Absolutely. We talked about fishing last year. Maybe I can get it done.
That'd be good.
That'd be great.
You shoot me a text and let me know when you're coming this way. So.
All right. Sounds great.
All right, man.
And good luck to you guys and your future. And I know you're taking your kids out. And what I enjoy is messing with them.
It is fun.
Yeah, you guys almost sold all your glassware and bow spider stuff for $10 today, so it was close. I almost had the deal done. And
I interrupted it.
Can I have this much? Well, you got to look at the pictures right here on the back wall, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The
first thing I saw when I come in.
It's
the
the kids.
It's about the kids.
The dad smiles are bigger than the kids.
Because we love those kids. That's for sure.
On that antelope hunt, I'd taken the older one mule deer hunting. I just got back from Kodiak goat hunting on the big boy trip, and the little one goes, "Dad, I want to go hunting." And I said, "All right, bud, what do you want to go hunting for?" And he says in his little voice, "Yantelope." Not antelope, yantelope.
Antelope.
And I'm like, guess what? I got a doe tag. Him and I went. He's on my shoulders. We got some pictures. We spotted the antelope. I messed up and didn't onyx drop him before we left the truck. I was about 3 fingers off. So we did about a 1,700 yard antelope stalk. And I keep asking him while he's on my shoulders, "Can you see him yet? Can you see him yet?" It's like, yeah. And I actually look up and they're about 120 yards in front of us. So he could see him. And obviously we got one, and touching the eye and the fur and helping with the process. And he's got his own little knife, and he wanted to go. And now it's like, "Dad, can we go again? When are we going?" And that fire's lit at a young age.
Yeah,
well,
that's good.
I think it was Rock Springs last year. You had your daughter down there, Patrick.
Yep.
And she was so fun to just, she knew I was messing with her all the time, but just the smile and, pretty soon within, an hour and a half, she's messing with me back. And I love when kids are able to relate to adults that way. That means that they, they're their own individuals. They're self-confident. They're, and I love that. So, and your son here today is doing the same.
Yeah, he's a good one.
All right.
Well, thanks again, Rick, and I'm sure we'll have you on next year to talk about your next season. It's become the annual Rick Parish show, and I like
Parish
it.
Episode, I like it too.
Yeah, I like it.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it, and I have fun doing it.
All right, man. Until next time.
Thanks again for listening to the Radcast Outdoors podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed the show. If so, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this podcast and subscribe, share, and give us a 5-star rating, which really helps other people find the show. You can find all of our shows, recipes, giveaways, videos, and much more at radcastoutdoors.com. While you're there, please help support the show by purchasing a Radcast Outdoors shirt or hat. Please don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We also have a Radcast community on Facebook called Radcast Nation, and we'd love for you to join in the conversation there. And of course, please help support our sponsors who make this show possible. Thank you again to PK Lures, Bow Spider, and High Mountain Seasonings. Until next time, get out there and enjoy the outdoors.